I don't think Manny Pacquiao did steroids. And, Terence Crawford obviously kind of went viral for talking about all of the legends in the sport of boxing, his top list in the pound for pound rankings of all time. And, he was asked, why isn't Pacquiao in it? Because he put Floyd up there. And obviously Pacquiao's always attached to Floyd. Floyd's always attached to Pacquiao. So he was asked about it, and Crawford basically said, Crawford said, I don't think Pacquiao did it on his own. And that's basically implying that Manny did steroids. And it's interesting to hear just because, Crawford called him a legend, called him, one of the best fighters of all time, ultimately, but he still thinks that he didn't do it on his own. So, like, which one is it? Is Pacquiao talented, or did he, not do it on his own? So it's just an interesting thing. I know maybe you can think it's both, that he was good and he did PEDs, but if you look at it, you can't accuse somebody who's never tested positive. Like, it's different for, like, Ryan Garcia, Conor Benn, Canelo, like Floyd even. Floyd's actually failed an IV test. And Floyd was another guy that was coming at Pacquiao for not wanting to do blood tests, but when they actually took the blood test, who failed it? Floyd, failed the drug test for a positive IV. So, like, Pacquiao's never even tested positive. So, automatically, for me, if we're talking about keeping the sport clean, Floyd's, if you want to go there, Floyd's already out of the equation. So, Pacquiao's got to be that guy. So, it's just like, I feel like Pacquiao's the best fighter of all time because ultimately, as good as Crawford and Canelo are right now, I don't think they're as good as Floyd and Manny, and a lot of that is because of the opposition which they face. Pacquiao and Mayweather, they fought the likes of De La Hoya, Marquez, Ricky Hatton, all these guys, Miguel Cotto, like, the list goes on and on for these guys' resumes. And then you look at Crawford's resume where he's gotten good wins against, Sean Porter, Spence, Amir Khan, but, like, if you really compare the resumes, Crawford and Canelo are nowhere near Pacquiao and Mayweather. It's not their fault because they can't control, who's out there. Maybe they would have beat guys like, De La Hoya. They would have beat guys like Ricky Hatton, but we'll never know because they haven't had the opposition. And in my opinion, Pacquiao and Floyd, they had harder opposition than Crawford and Canelo have had. So it's different times ultimately, but just going back to the PED accusations, I just think it's unfair to Pacquiao because, like I said, if you've never failed a test, how can you even be, accused of it? How can you be accused of it just because you don't want to get tested, blood tested throughout your training camp all the time, like when you're training? I don't think that's like a crazy thing. Like, who would want that? It's inconvenient, and when you're supposed to train, why would you want someone taking blood from you? You want that blood flow to keep going, to be strong. I don't think people made a big deal about, Pacquiao and why he didn't want to do blood tests. Like, would you want to do a blood test when you're training 24/7? Like, and it's not just one test. You get tested throughout the training camp, right before and after. So it was like something that Pacquiao had to, ease into and say, okay, we could do that. But, like, any individual that's training constantly, like, the last thing they want to do is get tested, so whether it's from urine or it's, a blood test. So it's like, if you're doing both as well, like, that's double the hassle. So it's just a lot of intricacies in the sport of boxing where, obviously we're seeing a lot of actual, fighters currently testing positive for PEDs, and then people have the audacity to, accuse a legend of Pacquiao of actually using PEDs. Like, let me know in the comments if you guys think Pacquiao used PEDs, but I just think that, he's just one of those once in a lifetime talents that, like, really did have the ability to beat guys that were bigger than them. Nowadays, a lot of fighters don't take risks. That's why people were so, like, baffled by the fact that Pacquiao was, like, knocking guys out that were bigger than them. A lot of guys just stay in the same weight class, but Pacquiao was continuously moving up because there was always another big name that he could go after and chase greatness for. So that's what he did. Nowadays, guys are like, no, I'm staying down here. Those guys are too big. But, like, Pacquiao was constantly moving up. He could still make 147 right now. He fought at 154 like a decade ago, more than a decade ago. So now he's still able to make 147. and fight for a title at welterweight. So Pacquiao didn't even belong at nowhere near 54, and he still did it because he wanted to be great. You have guys nowadays that don't even want to move up their natural weight class by one division, and Pacquiao was doing it by multiple divisions. Could have made 140 when he was fighting at 54. So like, that's testament to how great Pacquiao is and how no one's ever gonna have that same mentality that he had no matter what. You have your undefeated record, your padded resume, but you'll never be like a Pacquiao unless you chase greatness like he did. So that's my opinion, you know, on, you know, people accusing Pacquiao of doing PED, specifically Crawford and Mayweather were the big names that, you know, suspected it, but I just don't agree with it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next Nabs boxing video. Peace.